Hi, this is Bianca from WAM Workspace, and this is an introduction to MailChimp and is going to talk you through the basics of MailChimp. There's also some training on why you should be using an email marketing platform rather than using your own inbox. Just a little bit about me. My name is Bianca Johnson. I am the owner and head tech VA at WAM Workspace. A tech virtual assistance business that has been running for 4 years. We specialize in assisting creative entrepreneurs to feel at home in the online space. Why you should listen to me: I'm a digital early adopter, self-taught. Everything I've learned through reading the training on these various platforms. And I've been working in MailChimp for years now, both for clients and for my own business. Sorry. So just a little bit about MailChimp. What is MailChimp? They advertise themselves as a marketing automation platform. Marketing in the sense of sharing information with other people in order to get them to buy or do something. When it comes to MailChimp, it's things like emails, ads, landing pages. You can use MailChimp to cross-post onto social media and all sorts of other things, and they're just getting bigger and bigger. Automation is the set it and let it. So set the things up and then just let it do what it needs to do, and you're not having to manually do a lot of things. And platform in the sense of they have both a website and apps for your mobile phone, and they let you do a lot of things automatically. Why do you need it? It helps to make your communication easier. You can communicate with clients even while you're sleeping. It helps to keep clients happier, and it meets a lot of the needs of the current personal information protection requirements of various countries, since MailChimp handles all of that for you. It's a much better option when it comes to managing emails, both from your perspective and from a client's perspective. So in MailChimp and in most email marketing platforms, you have what's called the audience. It may have a different name. Basically, it's the collection of interested contacts. And I think that's the most important thing to remember, is that it needs to be a collection of interested contacts. And if someone's interest changes, you shouldn't feel upset or annoyed that someone is unsubscribed from your list. It just means that you are making sure that the list that you actually have is a list of interested contacts. The other key is that it needs to be contacts. It needs to be people that you've actually had contact with in some way or another. You can't have, you shouldn't be importing lists of email addresses that have never heard of your business or who have never interacted with you in any way. It needs to be contacts, so people who've actually had an interaction with your business in some way, and who are interested in finding out more about your business for whatever reason. The benefits of using something like a MailChimp or some of the other email marketing platforms is that adding those people is automated. It automates people updating their information as well as adding their information. You want to make sure that people have the option to remove their information when they want to, especially considering a lot of the spam rules worldwide. It's also really important that you use something like this rather than using your own email address, because you can do things like prevent merge tags, prevent spam bots from marking your email as spam, because MailChimp does the required things in order to notify those spam bots that you are actually sending a reliable email. You also have the option then to use things like merge tags, which are those little bits of code that help your emails be more personal when you send them out. Instead of having to retype every single email, you can use the features of the email marketing platforms in order to create that personal information. Who are the people that you want on your list? As I said, you're wanting interested people, you're wanting people that are engaging with you, whether it's on social media or with your website, and you want to include your paying customers in your audience. You want to make sure that the people who are on the list want to know more about you, and don't ever feel bad about someone leaving your list. Where do you collect the information of those people? You have so many different options. You can collect them through social media. You can collect them automatically when someone places a purchase. You can collect them on your website. Most places nowadays do the collections in exchange for some sort of freebie, whether it's a checklist or a webinar, or any number of options can be used, but the majority of people are going to expect something in return for giving you their email address. You do also have the option of collecting these email addresses in person. We don't recommend this, as you are often left with having to read people's handwriting if they've written their email address down at a conference or something like that. MailChimp now has some really nice options where you can create a QR code for people to scan with their phone and enter their information themselves. They also have a separate app for iPad, which you can use at conferences, which lets people fill in their information. As soon as you hit submit, it adds them to the list, but it brings up the sign up form again. It's specifically designed for in-person conferences. Obviously, at this point in time, there's not a whole lot of those happening in the world. One way that a lot of businesses do get information is they buy databases. I do not recommend this. This is a very fast way to get onto the spam list. And that can then jeopardize delivery of all of your email addresses. So you want to make sure that you are adding interested contacts to your audience, because those are the people that are actually going to interact with you. And the better interaction you have with the audience that you have in your email marketing platform, the better you rank for delivery. So it's actually really useful to make sure that the people on your list are actually people that you want there and that want to be there. You've then got the how of signing them up, and that is with things like direct links, pop-ups on your website, embedding the sign-up form on your website or on your social media. You have a number of different options on how to actually collect that information. And MailChimp helps with all of this by automating it and having all of these options built into the way that they work. So it's a really useful platform that lets you do a lot of the most important things when it comes to email marketing automatically and built into the system. So just a little bit to understand what is a newsletter, which is the main thing that I'm going to be discussing when it comes to email marketing, and sort of just knowing how you set it up, what it is, what it's not, etc. So dictionary.com describes it as a written report issued periodically, typically by a business, institution, or other organization that presents information and news to people with a specific interest in the organization or subject. Or a written report and analysis of the news, often providing forecasts, typically directed at a special audience as business people and distributed to subscribers. So it's really important to remember that a newsletter is informative, relevant, and it's new news. You don't want to be repeating information every time that you send an email. You want to be giving new information to your subscriber list. One of the key things at the moment as well is that it really needs to be showing value. Your newsletters need to be providing value to the people that are on your list. If you consider how many emails you get on your inbox, which are the newsletters that you're more likely to read? What is it about those newsletters that make them more readable? Generally, they're informative, they're relevant to what you're doing right now, and they're providing you with new information that's useful and helpful to you. Generally, we don't tend to open very salesy emails. We're looking for emails that are going to give us value and then use them moving forward. And building that relationship with that business and knowing that we're getting value, we're far more likely to sign up for something that someone is going to sell us or purchase something that someone is selling if it is a newsletter that we are interested in. So what these newsletters are not, they're not always about sales. They're not only a summary of your website or your Facebook page. Generally, they don't give all of the information in the newsletter either. So there's nothing worse than getting an entire blog post in the newsletter, because what you need to remember as well with almost all marketing, whether it's social media marketing, email marketing, any marketing that you're doing, the whole goal of that marketing is to get the person reading it or seeing it to interact directly with you. And generally, when it comes to online businesses, that means sending someone to your website. So if you're giving everything that they need to know in the email, there's no reason for them to go to your website. So you want to make sure that any marketing that you put out into the world is directing people to your home on the internet. And your home on the internet should be something that you own, like your website. Generally not sending people to a Facebook page, which is owned by Facebook, and you can be locked out of it at any time, or not even really sending them to a MailChimp landing page, because again, that's on MailChimp's website and you don't actually own that information. So you want to at all times be directing people to interact with your information on your home on the internet. So other things that a newsletter is not, is it's not always sales. It's not always the information. You want to, as I mentioned before, be providing value and not just selling all the time in your emails. The more value you provide, the more likely it is that people will purchase from you at some point. When it comes to when should I send them and how often, that's probably the most common question when it comes to email marketing newsletters. And the biggest thing here is that it should be consistent. Whatever you are able to do consistently should be your consistency. But again, it also very much is unique to every business. So for example, in Durban in December, there is a Trail of Lights event that happens around Christmas. Now, they are not going to be emailing you every single month for the whole 12 months of the year, telling you that there's going to be a Trail of Lights in December. They know that they need to get information out to you right around the time when the shop starts selling Christmas stuff. So you probably will get the first email from the Trail of Lights people in October, which will be just to let you know, or early October or late September, just to let you know that the Trail of Lights will be happening this year, and here are the dates that have been set up for the event this year. As we move into November, they will start to mention a little bit more information, then probably will email you a little more frequently. As we get closer to the opening date of the Trail of Lights, they may start to email you on a daily basis. And once the Trail of Lights is open, they'll probably email you on a weekly basis or even more frequently with updates or special events or special occasions, or letting you know which dates still have tickets available and those sorts of things. And then there may be a last email in January saying, thanks so much for joining us in this year's event. We look forward to seeing you next year for the new event. Possibly they may send you an email in July when everyone is sending their Christmas and July emails, but you probably won't hear from them for most of the year until it gets closer to the time again. Whereas someone like a restaurant may send out a weekly email with their specials for that week if they've got quite an active email platform. If it's not a business that has a lot of email platform, a lot of email clients, what they might do is send a monthly newsletter with upcoming dates for the following month or something like that. Someone like Yuppiechef, who has a team of 30 people on their marketing department, they're able to send a daily email with a theme for each day and different products. And people that shop on Yuppiechef regularly don't mind hearing about all the same products in a different theme. So they tend to theme their days. So they'll have a braai day, and then they'll talk about all the things that you can purchase, which are vaguely related to braais. And then they might have a day where they're talking about cocktails, and there might be overlap in some of the products that they sell on braai day versus cocktails day. But they have hundreds of thousands of products, and they need to get those out in front of the people that have signed up for their newsletters. So for them, consistency is daily. For other businesses, consistency may be quarterly, or during a special event, or only when they have a special event. So it's really important to figure out what works for your business. What is a consistent schedule that you can stick to? Because what happens is it then becomes predictable, and your clients look forward to seeing your email on that particular day each week, each day, each month, etc. And it fits into their schedule, and they start to expect when that email is going to come. So there's no one real answer for when should I send out newsletters and how often should I do it. It really applies to your business and what works best in your particular business. It's then also important to remember, like, what is considered spam. So particularly when it comes to the content of emails, things that are often marked as spam are if you're too salesy, if you repeat the same thing over and over and over again. So there's not enough unique content in each email. Obviously the key one, not so much to do with content, but more to do with who you're emailing, is you want to make sure that you are always only emailing people that have actively opted in, but I'll get into that a little bit more. Another thing to consider when it comes to spam is that a lot of the spam bots will search out particular phrases within an email. So things like financial freedom, anything to do with the pyramid scheme type structure of a business, or anything along those lines, tend to be flagged by a lot of the spam bots these days. So it's quite important to also think about the content that you are including in your emails. Other things are things like unsolicited emails, as well as emails that are very much in your face or irrelevant to what someone has signed up for. So for example, if someone signs up to your newsletter and you tell them that you're going to email them about photography and you're a photographer, and then all of a sudden out of the blue you email them about swim lessons or something completely unrelated, that is very likely going to be marked as spam. So those are the other things to just keep in mind. And we definitely don't want to be marked as spam. So when it comes to spam, you have a variety of things which are really important. Obviously, in South Africa, we now have the POPI Act, which has now come into effect, as well as the GDPR, which is for anyone who is an EU citizen. So it's quite interesting to keep in mind that the GDPR requirements apply to any business who has an EU citizen sharing their information with them. So it's not just if your business is based in the EU, but if you have anyone on your mailing list who is an EU citizen, no matter where they live in the world, GDPR applies to you as well. POPI Act applies to anyone in South Africa, as well as anyone processing information within South Africa, no matter where the information comes from or who is using it. So if it is processed in South Africa, the POPI Act applies. And GDPR and POPI are very similar. The key things that you have to keep in mind with, as far as the information that you track for your clients and those sorts of things, are accountability. It is your responsibility to look after the information that you get from your clients. The fact that you are limited to how you process that information, and you can't just use the information to do things other than what you specifically said you were going to use it for. So that is point 3, is that you have to specify what that information is going to be used for. So for example, if someone is purchasing something online, you will state that you require their information in order to deliver the products to them, and in order to ensure that they can always access their information within the website in order to query anything to do with the that order, etc. Again, so there are numerous processing limitations. You can't pass that information on to any third parties without express permission from the client, and those sorts of things. As far as what is considered personal information, is anything that is uniquely identifying of an individual. Does not apply to businesses. So it's anything that is uniquely identifying. And so, for example, in South Africa, your ID number is very much uniquely identifying. That number points to a very specific person and a very specific human legal entity. Something like an email address or a phone number without any additional information is not as uniquely identifying. And so it's just important to keep in mind that all of that information has to be very carefully processed. You have to be very open. One of the key things in both GDPR and POPI is not so much that breaches don't happen, but it's how you as a business owner discuss and deal with those breaches that becomes really important. So if for some reason the information that you have of someone does get out into the world, it's how you deal with that versus the fact that it's got out. So both of these legal entities obviously insist on a fair amount of security safeguards and those sorts of things, but it also is about how well you deal with an issue if something does happen. And then the key one for both GDPR and POPI is that the data subject has to have active participation. So what that means is you can no longer have someone opt out of something. They have to actively opt in. So even things like on your website, you can't automatically have the opt-in box ticked. They have to actively tick the box to accept your terms and conditions or to sign up for your newsletter and those sorts of things. It's nice to know as well that just having if you are having someone sign up in order to receive marketing, they don't have to tick a checkbox, but just the mere act of putting their information in and their email address and clicking subscribe, that is an active participation. You haven't put them onto your list without their authorization. So it has to be an active data subject participation. So they have to actively make the choice to be put onto your email marketing list. It's not a case of having the option. They always need to have the option to opt out. But if you add someone onto a list without their consent, they can report you for that. So it is just something to keep in mind. So best practices, like I said, don't buy any databases, don't add anyone manually yourself. It's much better to rather send them a link or a form or a QR code where they actively opt in on their own. So those are just what's nice. As I mentioned, MailChimp makes it easy and everything is already built into the system. So the only thing that you need to just make sure that you don't do is add someone without their consent. So in MailChimp, you have a number of different campaigns that you can create. The three most common ones that most people are using are emails, ads, or landing pages, but you can now also create social posts. There are automated emails, which I'll go into a little bit in a little bit. And then you can also create and style sign-up forms. They've now also added things like websites, landing pages, well, the landing pages, but you can now create whole websites. And if you are in the USA, you can actually create a postable postcard, which MailChimp will actually mail for you, which I think is a little odd. This talk is mainly going to talk about emails, and I'm not really going to touch on ads or landing pages at all. One of the key things to remember when you're creating a newsletter is Images obviously help to tell a story. The whole photo tells 1,000 words. It's very useful to use images, but it is also really important to make sure that they are relevant and representative. So you don't want to be using stock photos of someone else's products in order to sell your own product. If you are going to be selling a physical product, make sure that you are using images that actually represent that product, preferably images that you've taken yourself, or images that you have been supplied by the manufacturer of the product. When it comes to using stock photos, you want to make sure that you are using stock photos that are from one of the reputable stock photo sites. You also have a number of options should you be using Canva, and if you need training on that, we have a Canva course as well. And there are a lot of stock photos built into Canva that you can use. And you want to always make sure that whatever images you are using in your email marketing, that you do have permission to use them. So screen grabs are often not permitted. If you are screen grabbing somebody's name, for example, off of social media, you have to have explicit permission to use that information. Google Images, you can't always just use any image out of Google. And it's important to make sure that the images that you are using have a public commons license. When it comes to sizing your images for email marketing is very specific in that all of the email platforms where you read your email have quite a specific size for the little box that you actually read the email content in. And that is pretty much universal. And so it's important to make sure that any images that you are creating or using are sized correctly in order to fit into that email. Otherwise, you end up with having to scroll left and right in order to be able to read an image. So I don't know if you've ever received a newsletter where it goes right across and you have to scroll left and right in order to be able to read something, or if someone includes a signature image in their email, it also goes far too big. So you want to make sure that you are sizing your images correctly in order for them to be to have the best deliverability. So when it comes to sizing, you don't want to go more than 800 pixels wide if you're doing something like a banner at the top of the image that goes full width. Generally, for the body of the image, you don't want to go more than 600 pixels wide, and you can keep it below 72 dpi, which is the dots per inch. 72 dpi and below will still give you a good quality image on most screens. And you don't really need any higher res, because then the image just becomes far too big and it will slow down downloading in the inbox. You want to keep your images as small as possible, digitally as small as possible, as well as making sure that they aren't actually very large. Otherwise, they will overtake the inbox completely. And you have a number of options for creating these images. There are loads of free websites and apps, so things like Canva, PicCollage, PicStitch, Snapseed, anything along those lines. But you just want to make sure that you keep the images smaller, that they are relevant and that they are representative, and that you have permission in order to use those images. Then when you go into most of the email marketing platforms, they have limited fonts that are available, and there's a reason for this. So all of the main email platforms, so things like Outlook, Mail, MacMail, Gmail, all of those sorts of things have quite limited fonts that they actually display the email in. And generally the emails, generally the fonts that are recommended with all of these email marketing platforms are the ones that have the best deliverability, because these are the fonts that ship with laptops and desktops and computers and the main operating systems. So those are your standards like Arial, Comic Sans, Courier New, Georgia, Helvetica, Lucinda, Tahoma, Times New Roman, Trebuchet, and Verdana. So those are pretty much the standard fonts that every single computer will have. And so it means that what you see when you're setting up your newsletter will be what the other person receives when they open it. They limit these quite dramatically in most of the platforms, because it improves the deliverability of your emails. So if you've ever opened an email and you get like the wingdings, although we don't tend to see that as much anymore, or it just all looks really a little bit off, it's probably because someone has typed the email in a font that is not supported by your browser or by your computer. And so you're seeing it really kind of off. And that is why a lot of the email marketing platforms will limit the fonts, because they want to give you the best available deliverability, which means that when it actually comes through to you, the newsletter will actually look exactly the same in someone's inbox as when you sent it out. There are additional fonts, which are considered what they call the Safish web fonts. And these are the fonts that are the most widely used across websites. So the chances are that someone has already seen that font on a website, which means that their computer would have downloaded the font file, and they would then be able to read that font. So that is Arrow, Lato, Laura, Merriweather, Merriweather Sans, Notisha, Open Sans, Playfair Display, Roboto, and Source Sans Pro. So those are the fonts that are recommended, and they generally, but generally using the basic fonts for a newsletter are going to give you the best deliverability. If you are wanting, for example, to use a signature or show a little bit of your font from your website, if you've got quite a fancy font or something like that, then we recommend using that in things like an image for the banner of your email. If you're going to put one of those in, just remember to size it correctly. Otherwise, what you can also do is create an image for your signature where you write your name in the font, etc. And you just post that image at the end of your email. Just do remember as well that a lot of businesses in particular will block images from displaying in emails. So don't put all of the most important information in an email into an image, because chances are there may be some people that don't actually see that image or aren't able to view it initially. So do ensure that you put that you make sure that the majority of the information that you're putting into a newsletter is in the writing, and that you're just using the images to tell a little bit more of the story, or to bring in your brand colors or your brand fonts and those sorts of things. And then just to talk about automation. Automation is probably the single biggest reason to use an email marketing platform. It's those sorts of things where your mail is working for you. So if someone signs up to your email list or signs up to receive a PDF or something like that from you at 3 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't really matter to you, because your system will automatically send a welcome email to them with the download that they're looking for. So automation is basically where it's going to automatically send an email. With the free MailChimp account, you can only ever send a single email, so you can't set up multi-step emails. So that's just something to keep in mind if you are on the free MailChimp account. If you are going to pay for your email marketing, we don't recommend paying for MailChimp. We just haven't found it as, we haven't found the tools for the price to be as competitive as some of the other email marketing platforms. If you need anything that requires you signing up to pay for MailChimp. So on the free MailChimp account, you can send up to 10,000 emails a month to no more than 2,500 audience members. Just remember that your unsubscribed people on your list count towards your audience. And you can send single-step automations, and you can send multiple single-step automations. So you don't have to worry too much that you can only send one single step. You can send multiple automations, but they can only have a single email. So the reasons to automate are obviously to let your mails work for you, and so that you're not having to manually remember to send people emails. You can use your email automations to send reminders to people once they've purchased something, to review the product. You can use your automations to send emails with an additional link for people to download a PDF. You can send automations to wish people happy birthday with possibly a coupon code or something like that. So you have quite a few options when it comes to automation and how you can use it. The key thing to remember with automations is that you set them up and that you make sure that they are actually working for you. So you can have a variety of triggers, like I mentioned. It can be triggered on a date, as in somebody's birthday, if they've shared that information with you. It can be triggered by having opened a particular mail, although that option isn't available in the free MailChimp. It can be triggered by a customer's activity. So if you could set it up that if someone goes and updates their email address, you can send them an additional email, or if someone places a purchase on your website, you can send them a follow-up email. If you've ever bought anything from Yuppiechef, you'll know that a week after you receive your delivery, you get an email address that says, you get an email that says, please can you review the products that you purchased. You can also do it with subscriber activity. So when someone signs up on a particular list, or when they get particular information, if they update certain information on their profile, it can also trigger an email to go out. And like I said, it's the opportunity for you to email potential clients while you sleep. Just a few other things before I finish. The benefits of an email marketing system is, in particular, when it comes to sort of things like merge tags, and those are all sort of built into almost all of the email marketing platforms, is that you can use those things to tailor the emails that you're sending out to your clients. So if you are, I have one client who are a dog hotel, and they actually collect the name of the dogs that someone owns, and they actually send their emails and mention the dogs' names in the email, which is quite a nice way to personalize the emails. You have much better deliverability of your emails when you are including personalization, whatever that personalization is. It also, there is some research that shows that sending plain text emails without any images sometimes improves deliverability. So that is just something that you'll need to just have a look at, whether it works for you or not. And if there are any questions, feel free to contact me. You can contact us via the website or via my email address, bianca@whamworkspace.com. Thank you very much and have a great day.